Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our webinar on ODT Rentals today. Today we're going to hear from Darren Christofferson. He's our product development manager who's very involved in this product update. During this presentation, if you have a question for Darren, I invite you to type your question into the question pane, and Darren will answer those at the end of the presentation. I'll now hand the time over to Darren.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Darren Christofferson. I've got 20 plus years of software product development, 17 of those at Open Door Technology, 17 years working with Navision, Nav, Business Central, all the different versions, roughly 10 years working in rentals, and roughly 8 years working in extensions and app development in Business Central since the very first release of AppSource. So been involved in this for quite a while. Today's agenda, we're going to go over user-defined billing terms, the visual rental calendar or availability calendar, the customer portal, electronic signatures, and changelog views. So those are kind of the highlights, and then we'll touch on a few of the other things at the end and do some questions. So the first thing we're going to touch on is user-defined billing terms. And these allow organizations to set up unique billing schedules that can charge a flat rate for an initial period or mix different billing terms. You can specify different rates for set periods of time or set different rates based on expected duration of the rentals. So we'll pop over into Business Central now, and I'll show you how we set that up. Off of the main rental menu, we have this link to user-defined billing terms. As you can see on the screen, I've set up a few already just for this demonstration. The first one here mixes initial billing with variable daily rate based on duration, right? So there's a couple of the things that I mentioned. So it uses the date from day 2 in the setup, and then when we add that to an actual rental line, it uses those date formulas to calculate the beginning and end dates for when these particular billing methods apply. So we'll see that when we actually go into a rental contract and start looking around there. But as you can see here, from 0D to 7D, it's going to do the initial billing for whatever rate that is. And then after that, for 8 days to 21 days, it's going to charge a different rate, 22 to 49 a different rate, 50 on a different rate. So that's kind of an example of one way to do it. This particular one uses also initial billing, but we have run-on. So after the first period, which is 5 days or 4 days, it'll start charging daily rate. And in the very end here, we see that it's using price from setup. So based on whatever we have set up for PE day and fixed end rental terms, it's going to pull that pricing from the setup on the rental unit and use that in the billing schedule. And then the last one we'll look at has fixed billing methods for different dates. So in this case, it's for sure going to charge this first rate on the first 5 days from 0D to 4D, right? And then after, on day 5, it's going to start charging a different rate. And then day 11, it's going to start charging a different rate. And we'll kind of show you the differences between those actually over in our rental quote. So I've already set this up. And this particular rental unit, it's the same rental unit for all of the lines. And we'll just be able to see that based on the start and end dates, when we look at the billing schedule, it's already calculated those out as from date and to date in here. So instead of 0D to 4D, we've got the 25th to February 1st. And I've already set the rate as $100 for the first period, and then the daily rate is $20 a day. If you use it for a shorter period, 18 for a middle length and 16 for a longer period. So if we take a look at the rental amount lines for this, I've currently got it set at the cheapest rate because the date goes into April. If I change that to be a shorter duration, we'll see that the rental amounts change based on the end date. So now they're all charging. So we still have $100 for the first 5 days or whatever it was, 7 days. And then after that, it's charging a higher rate of $20 because they're not going to have it as long. So that's what that duration-based billing schedule means. The next one, again, uses initial billing, and then it pulls the periodic end day rate off of the rental unit. So what I'm going to show is that when we look at the rental amount lines, it's charging $225 for the first 4 days, and then after that, $35 a day. And that is because this particular unit has those prices set up. There's my $225 for fixed, and then $35 for the day rate afterwards. So I didn't have to set that up, it just pulls that from existing setup. And then the last one is the variable daily rate. And if we look at the billing schedule, I set this up for 20 for the first week, 4 days, 5 days, and then 18 after that, and then 16 after that, and then 14 after that. So you'll see the difference between this one and the first line is that it actually uses all of those different rates. So there's 20 for the first 5 days, 18 for the next day, a few days, then 16, then 14 for the end. So it gradually gets cheaper the longer they have it, but you still charge the full term on the first piece. And that's basically what the user-defined billing terms are all about, basically mixing and matching different terms that you could use and combining them into a different rental term. All right, so the next thing that we're going to touch on is the visual rental availability calendars. And this is exciting stuff. This gives the user a visual representation of their fleet and the demand and allows them to manage the rental units with drag and drop functionality. So if we jump back into Business Central, I'm going to get out of the rental quote. I'm going to go back to my role center. And the first thing we're going to look at is the setup. So the visual calendar setup allows you to customize the colors and whatnot. So if we take a look at the entire fleet, this is just going to load everything that's in the system and basically display all of those in the grid. And we can see that is kind of Business Central colors right now. If we go into rental management setup and then change the calendar setup, it gives us the ability to basically change the colors to whatever we want and customize that for your scheme. And then when we open up the same calendar again, you'll see that the colors have changed and it's fully configurable. So this is the entire fleet. It takes a little while to load, but because there's so much in here, but you can see that now the first line's all blue instead. The next thing I'm going to do is pop back over into our rental contracts. We're going to look at a rental contract that I've set up earlier, but I have not assigned which units we're going to send out. Okay, so from inside this contract, I can pop open the availability calendar, and now it's going to show me just that group, and it allows me to drag what I want into the thing, into the particular units, and we can see that it's set up back over onto the screen which units have been assigned. We can also modify dates within here just by dragging the ends. So if I say this one's going to be returned a couple days early, right? So that was rental unit 1. You can see that has changed the end date, right, to a couple days earlier now. So we have the ability to basically go into the rental calendars and manage the fleet and assign units from within the calendar itself instead of going through the list, which basically just shows you what's on rent now and not. And if we open up the actual list, we know what's on rent or what has reservations, but we don't really know when they're due back. That's why the calendar kind of gives us a visual representation of where things are and what's already available. So that was the calendars. The next thing we're going to touch on is the customer portal. So this gives the business an online presence and allows their customers to search for rental units, view prices, request quotes, and the quotes are actually generated inside of Business Central. It also allows the customer to see their active quotes and contracts, as well as rental history and invoices. And this can also be set up to show service units and activities as well. And let's pop over there and show this. So this is basically our demo rental portal. This is in open door style, let's say. Now this is fully customizable. You can change all of these images, all of these colors to match whatever your particular websites have, right? So you can change that based on a cascading style sheet and set this up to match your online presence. I'm going to sign in. And once we get in, we can view rental units by category. Actually, I should change that. I can view these things without having to log in. So because I've got an account and Helen Ray is associated with a customer inside of Business Central, I will view things just a little bit differently. So if I come into view Bobcats, let's say, I get pricing. So this pricing is reflective of what the pricing would be inside of Business Central for this customer. So if there are customer price groups, then those prices are reflected here in the portal. If you log in just as an anonymous person, it'll just take whatever the standard prices are for the different units. And from inside here, I can add to cart. And then once I go into my cart, I can request a quote. From the account, now, like I said before, Helen Ray is associated with a customer inside of Business Central. And because of that, I can view history. So open and closed quotes, open and closed contracts, items on rent, rental history, as well as invoices. If I come into the invoice screen, I can also take a look at certain information that's set up inside of Business Central. And so you can see I just popped up this rental invoice from posted sales invoice 10-103-001. If I go into Business Central, so this is the same place, and here's where I have the attachment set up, and there's the same invoice inside of Business Central. You can see that information is coming directly from Business Central. So that's exciting stuff. The next thing we're going to touch on is electronic signatures. So electronic signatures are a fully configurable way to capture up to 8 signatures on any document in Business Central. And I need to note here that it's not just rentals or service documents. You can also do these on sales documents or purchase documents too if you need to. By default, 1 signature is enabled on anything that you add the signature capture to, but using setup, you can add up to 8 signatures and customize different documents with different signatures. 2 signatures have already been added to the layouts of the rental documents. When you print a quote, a contract, a pro forma, advanced pro forma, a posted sales invoice, a rental delivery, or a rental return document, that will have the ability to capture up to 2 already in the layouts, but you can add up to 8 signatures by adding a custom layout. It's already in the data set. No extra development is required. All right, so we're going to pop back over into Business Central. I'm going to go back to the right one. I'm going to go back into rental quotes, and I'm going to show you, actually, let's go into setup first. So under rental management setup, we have signature setup. And in here, you can specify a default signature clause that will happen wherever you don't make a specific signature clause. And then inside the signature uses, you can see here, I've got basically 3 setup. One for sales header for document type of invoice, okay? One for rental quote, but it's required, that has 2 signatures. And then one for rental delivery that has a single signature. So if I go back into a rental quote and I open up that card, I've got 2 places where I can see documents. So I have a document signature pane at the bottom of the card, and I also have a document signature fact box. You can use it from either side. I usually minimize fact boxes, so I have more real estate screen real estate. But if you go into the document signatures, click capture signature. This one has 2 signatures set up, so I have to tell them which signature I'm doing first. And then basically, just like you would anywhere, accept and sign. Right? For the second one, do the same thing. Select the second signature. Accept and sign. You can see it's there. It's also in the fact boxes. And if I process the quote, the signatures are at the bottom of the quote. Now, you may have noticed, or maybe you didn't notice, but I had not set up one for rental contracts. If I come into a rental contract, I can do the same thing, but because there's nothing set up ahead of time, I can only manage one, right? I'm going to just cancel that because I've already signed it once. And you can see from here that same thing happens without any setup. I can do up to one single signature without setting up anything, and it prints on the documents as well. Changelog views. So changelog views gives the user a direct link to the changelog entries for the current entity without having to search through thousands of records. So I don't know if you guys have used changelog before. This is leveraging standard Business Central functionality, just making it a little bit more easy to use. So if I was going to use standard Business Central changelog, right, and I wanted to find something in changelog entries, you can see that it is a bit of a bear to find anything. There's 1,000 things in here, and I've only enabled changelog for very few things. So trying to find what you need in standard Business Central changelog entries is a bit of a pain. That's why we added the ability to do it right off of the particular entity. So in this particular case, I've added the generator item. And if I go on to related changelog if entries, you can see it's already filtered down to the one thing. Somebody changed it from PE month to PE opt week. Who was that? Oh, that was me. Oopsie, can't get angry. So, but that's the point, is basically from a single click, we can find all the changelog entries for a particular entity. So some other things that are in this release, we have location dimensions. So Business Central added location dimension, default dimensions in the last release, which is 20.0. So we've enabled that inside of rentals as well. We've enhanced job integration. So some things that allows us to integrate jobs with rentals, that's been enhanced. And the other thing that, one of the other things we added was the default quantity to rent. So in sales, you have the ability to specify if you want to ship the remainder or invoice the remainder. Something similar to that is now in rentals, so that you can specify the default quantity to rent to be 0 or the remainder. So coming soon, summer 2022, we have swap or exchange from a different rental group. So if something happens and you need to swap or exchange an existing rental unit and you don't have any availability, you can set up substitutes to be able to swap from a different group. So that's something that's kind of nice. Recurring subrental POs will be in this next release as well. You know, when you fully receive an invoice, a PO, it disappears. So we've added the ability to keep a PO open until the sub-rental that it was issued for has been returned, and you've acknowledged that it's been returned to the vendor. And we're also adding the ability to archive rental quotes and to be able to bring them back and make them active again. And then fall 2022, we have dispatch coming. So the ability to manage the deliveries and pickups of the rental units and put them on trucks, assign drivers to trucks, assign loads to trucks, and different routes and that kind of thing. So that's coming in fall of 2022 in conjunction with the next major release of Business Central. So now we have time for questions. So I should mention now that we recently updated the licensing process within rentals. We sent out a communication with your unique license keys a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't received that or you haven't seen that, contact us and we'll get you that information. But make sure you read that email and follow the instructions in order to set up your users inside of Business Central.
Okay, it looks like nobody has questions right now. I invite you to send any questions you might have after this webinar. Send them to us at hi@opendooerp.com and we'll have someone contact you as soon as possible with an answer. And if you have any queries about pricing as well, please contact your account manager. So thank you so much for joining us today, and thanks again to Darren for a very informative presentation. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.